Hey Joachim,
Hello,
hi Joachim, how are you?
I'm good. Yourself?
Very well, thank you. How are you surviving the lockdown?
I'm doing all right for now. How about yourself?
Yeah, look, I mean, for me, from a work perspective, I've worked from home and worked remotely for like 8 years now. So it's not very different, but you'll probably hear my kids about to run out the door now. That's the only thing that's different is the kids are around to disturb you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I've done a fair bit. I've tried to do a couple of days a week before, but yeah, it's different with the kids home and then no outlet. They have no activities, right? All the
Yeah.
team sports and all that stuff is canceled. So that's a little different. And I'm up in the Truckee, so uh, I'm away from the city and the bay, so that's good.
Oh, okay. So whereabouts is that? Sorry.
Truckee up in the Lake Tahoe area. It's about
Oh,
3 hours
okay.
from San Francisco.
Did you say 3 hours?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. So do you don't commute that on a week-to-week basis then?
No, so I'm renting, and I have an apartment in San Francisco
Right.
for weekdays. That's now
Yep.
sitting empty. But yeah,
Yep. Okay.
yeah,
Which is probably not a bad thing, right? You get the best of both worlds. The family has space and away from the city, and then you just are in the city for when you need to be.
yeah. It's good, and we start. Yeah. It's been good. Yeah, I have no complaints about that. Where are you at?
So I live in Sydney, so Bondi Beach. So yeah, I mean, I can kind of live anywhere though. My job really doesn't dictate that we live here. It's just we came here like I don't know, like maybe 15 years ago now for
Oh
my
wow.
wife's work, and then we just love it. Like we're 200 meters from the beach. It's a very easy life here. We've debated a few times doing what you've done, like going and living away from the city, and I'll just come in when I need to go to the city. But as my business has kind of grown and gone international, it makes no difference. But it's just the lifestyle. My wife, it's more about what she wants now because I can do it anywhere.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's it'll be interesting to see how and when we come out of this, what it looks like. But there's a lot
I
of
think
things
it's going to
being
make for a lot more people doing what you do because you can commute more. Like you don't have to have the high rent and the high density of the city when you can work 2 days from home and go into the city 2 days a week. You just go in the morning, stay overnight, and come back. Like that. To me, it would be logical.
Yeah, I think you worry about but you think about the city centers, right? I get, yeah, when you're 20s, you want to probably have that lifestyle, but I don't see anybody wanting that for a while, and
No, totally agree.
demand for more rural or suburban settings will go through the roof, I think.
Yeah.
And just to your point, like where you could come in for a day or two and then you don't have to be there, right? It just has to be, because it's not like the virus, you're going to shut it off, right? There's going to be
No,
worries. At a minimum, there's going to be worries for years to come, I think.
totally. Yeah.
Um, yeah.
And I think this is the good thing about this is it's shocked us into having to do it and proving that it can work. And for argument's sake, Treasury needs to be in the office for a time frame, but they don't have to be in 5 days a week. There are certain things that once your technology allows it, you can do from anywhere, really.
Well, it turns out you don't at all, actually, right?
Yeah.
It's running just fine. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, the thing is, Oliver and I tried all the little stuff that you thought that we had all these things that in a week, all of a sudden banks are accepting DocuSign,
Yep.
right? As an example, some of my other areas like payroll, we had issues getting through IT security and some of their stuff. Well, you know what? If mail isn't an option in some countries, well, I guess that's the way we're going to go. We're going to go
Yep.
electronic, right? So all of a sudden, a lot of hurdles went away very
Yep.
quickly, which I think is kind of remarkable. And it turns out it's working just fine, right? I mean,
Yep.
obviously, it could be security threats down the line, but yeah, I don't see people rolling back, right?
No,
Going,
I
oh
agree.
yeah, we're going to turn back the paper. I don't see that. So I
No.
think there'll be other reasons for having an office or meeting spaces and all that. I think you still need the human interaction, but it's hard for me to see it going back to the same at the same token.
It's probably more for people's mental health to be able to
Oh yeah,
actually,
that's what I mean.
like I've got quite a few wives of friends who was like, well, this doesn't work for me, because what I like about work is I get away from my kids, I get out of the house, I have human interaction, I meet people face to face and talk about interesting things. And in that environment, I totally get it. But for a lot of other stuff, you know, it makes, like for me, it makes no difference. Like, as long as people accept videos like we're doing now, it makes no difference where I'm based or what time it is in the day. You know, you just get in and you do it. So,
yeah,
I can't see that changing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I think the travel will come down at the same time too.
Yeah,
I think
I
that
agree.
would
So
really...
I'd factored in going to the US probably 6 or 7 times for the rest of this year. And I'm looking at it for next year going, well, actually, I don't need to do that. Like, I can do video and I can, like do a trip or two because you want to meet people and press the flesh. But I don't know, everyone's so accepting now of what video can provide and how, you know, personal that still is.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think that's, it'll be a reduction. It won't go away, but it will be a reduction and an adjustment for sure, I think, for everybody, which is a good thing. It's good for the environment, I think. It's probably good for I think we spent way too much time, so to speak, in little tubes flying across the sky or little steel boxes on the road, right? Like, that's just not very productive time for anybody.
And particularly with San Francisco traffic, there would be people who were spending, you know, an hour and a half each way on their commute just to get to the city. When, you know, that's 3 hours in your day. How much can you get done in that time? And ironically, I think when you work from home, you actually work more rather than less.
Yeah, I think, it's really hard to tell. That's my struggle, right? I can't really prove it, but there are lots of little things. Like, all the meetings have started to end on time.
Yeah.
We had lots of meetings that never ended on time, 20 minutes late, then you're late to the next, and everybody's waiting for everybody. And there's so much inefficiency, I think, in the commute, the meeting times, the water cooler talk that doesn't exist the same way when you have 10 people on a Zoom video.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, yes, you lose the social aspect, which, to your point, like you're going to need that back at some point. But it feels to me like efficiency has gone way up.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And I think particularly in professional jobs, you know, people aren't there to mess around generally. I get it for, like, I had an argument the other day with a guy and he's like, no, in blue collar jobs though, like, turning up is your, you know, that's what you have to do. And you're there at 9 and you leave at 5. And if you actually do something in those hours, happy days for your employer. If you don't, it doesn't matter because you still get paid. So I kind of see that there are certain jobs where that wouldn't work. But in our world, like Treasury in the professional world, you know, no one's really there to mess around. You've got a job to do. You just want to get it done. If you can do it in 5 hours rather than 8, happy days. Go for a run, cook your dinner.
Exactly.
Yeah. But if it takes you 10 hours, it is what it is. You're just going to have to get it done.
Yeah, absolutely right. Yeah, that's how it goes.
And so from a Treasury perspective, then everything's stacking up really well, and you're pleased with how it's going.
Yeah. Well, there are people, right, that are single and sitting at home by themselves, right? They're not. Yeah. Bizarrely, I think that the people with the family really struggle, right? But they mentally are better off, even though it's like a complete balance between, you know, taking care of the kids and working. But when you're sitting by yourself at home, I think that's tougher mentally. I think those seems to be the one that struggles more.
Yeah. And I'll be interested to see, like, suicide rates and mental health and all of that. Like, that will be an interesting byproduct of this, because that might be the bit that surprises us the most.
I think so too. Down the road, when we get to evaluate what the impact really was.
Scarily, like the end of my road is a massive cliff that sort of goes down to the beach, and there's been 3 jumpers this week, and we haven't had jumper from there for a long time. So that's what kind of alerted me to the fact that, wow, no one, like, there's always jumpers like south of where we are, but they never normally come here. They're always like at the higher part. But the fact that they're going from there means there's probably a lot more jumpers generally. Yeah,
that probably is true.
Which is scary.
That is scary. That is scary. I also think it's also reflective of, you know, when you have these abrupt changes and now you're by yourself, I think it forces you to think about stuff that you could have pushed back prior, right? I think that's that is what it is. No, but the team is good. The team seems to be doing fine globally. I haven't had any concerns really, and I think operationally things have gone well. Kind of what I call the front office, even though my team doesn't like me talking like that, but the front office has been busy. It was the first liquidity scare periods, what I'd call it, and and now it's moved into. I have a lot of different teams apart from Treasury too, so I don't spend all my time on their stuff, but forecasting is another piece that I have, and that's been, as you can imagine, really rough.
That's been really hard,
yeah. It's kind of replan, and here's replan 2, and now we're at replan 3. I understand that we want to have some sort of idea of scenarios, but it's also, there's such poor visibility, to be honest.
Well, it's a lot of it's like literally just guessing at the moment, isn't it? Because you just don't know. I mean, I do a lot of work with infrastructure businesses. So yesterday, Sydney Airport announced their revenues are down 97%, which is kind of logical, but 97%, like that's just like, how do you even have a contingency plan that you're going to lose 90 or 97% of your revenue? It's nuts.
Yeah, so that's the. We can do stuff like, obviously you stratify your customer base into what do we have in retail? What do we have in travel, hospitality? What do we have in, and you can start to get a sense, right? If the customer name is Hertz, you're kind of going, they're probably looking at the 90% somewhat plus, decline in revenue. So basically they have no income and they probably fired everybody that they could. But they're probably still bleeding money, right? They're probably not going to be paying bills.
No,
just saying. So you have, but it's hard, right? It's hard. Like, it's hard.
They're not paying on 30 days.
Yeah, so it's hard to assess across what the impact really will be. But those are easier, I think. Then there's all the in-betweens, right? There's a lot of in-betweens. All the whole small, medium-sized business space. Yep. Really hard to assess who's going to survive, who's not.
Yeah.
How big of an impact will it be? How quick is this over? So it's a little bit of a guessing game.
Yeah, and that for me is the key. Is we just need an end date. You can start planning when you have an end date, but like at my business, and are people really going? I mean, ironically, they still are for stuff that was in train because it was important. But are they going to hire new roles now? They're distracted with just doing the day to day. So is that going to be 3 months of distraction, or is that going to be 6 months? Is that going to be like that? That's the hardest bit, is just not knowing what's coming.
Yeah, I think, we've had some movement on the teams. Not a lot, but some, but it's stuff that was, you're right, that was in play. That was kind of, they were in final rounds or whatever. And
or it's a critical role. Like, if you're, you've got a funding need in your team, like senior guy running the team, you're still going to want to hire that because that need's only getting more important. So there definitely will be hiring. I'm not worried. I think that will happen, but just anything that doesn't have to be, I don't think will be.
Yeah, I think that's right. And I think it'll be a slowdown in hiring growth for those companies that are in a growth mode like us, right? That will slow down. But perhaps, and perhaps there'll be layoffs elsewhere. I don't know. And obviously the big guy, but Treasury is a tough one, right? You don't want to be laying off the people that manage the cash. That's all you care about at the moment, because it's literally all you care about. if you're in a lot of spaces at the moment. So you probably have, and they might want to hire even, right? Because
well, everyone's telling me after the GFC, my business didn't exist before the GFC, but after the GFC, Treasury went through a real boom because everyone realized that underinvested. So I kind of feel that will happen, but not until we have an end date. Like that's the key thing, is we just need to have an end to know when we can start planning from. I agree with you. I think that as long as companies exist, then the Treasury will be fine and probably be adding. But, you know, to your example, well, like Virgin Australia just went into liquidation, voluntary administration yesterday. You know, you look at a Sydney Airport or a Hertz or these businesses in the travel side, are they going to get through? That's the key.
Yeah, I think that's not without government support. I mean, there's a question of how many months they have. I'd be hard pressed to say that I think any of them have enough, right? No. Because when are United going to fly full planes again? I don't know, 2022?
Yeah.
I mean,
totally. Like to your point, it's game changing in terms of our behaviours even. Like, even when we have an end date, that they're the industries that you're going to question, like, are we going to travel as much? You know, maybe you don't need United and Delta. You probably only need one, because
and prices will probably have to go up dramatically, to be honest, because they're going to. You're not. I don't think you're going to be able to pack economy class like you have.
No.
Right. I hear a lot of the airlines that we work with are thinking of every other seat. When they start operating again, they're not going to sell all. They're only going to sell half the seats, and you're only going to be sitting every other, which makes total sense to me.
Absolutely.
But that's not that great for revenue.
No, and likewise, that just means price has to double. It's sort of, you know, like the business class equivalent, isn't it? Like, you've just got to, the price of that space is just going to be more.
Yeah, it's going to be more. So what do you specialize in? You're obviously treasury specialist.
Yeah, so all I do is treasury. So, you know, anything from the treasurer role down to, you know, anyone within the team. So not so much like back office. Like, I don't really do, you know, not that really sits in a lot of treasuries these days anyway. It tends to be more core finance. But like anything sort of $100,000 plus that sits within a treasury function is what we specialize in. And then we sort of branch out from that into like the consulting firms. So like the treasury advisory and consulting firms, or the vendors, the TMS providers, that systems type role as well. But very niche, just in treasury.
Yeah.
Which I've done.
And you do it globally.
Not exactly globally. So my business at the moment is, I live in Australia, so that's where the business started. And then I went up to Singapore and Hong Kong, and then into the US last year. So I don't do it personally globally. I have people in those locations, but I guess I sort of, I have like a podcast, and I do quite a lot of posting and all that sort of stuff from a marketing and a business awareness perspective. So and like this, I guess I do a lot of the meetings and getting to know people, and then I've got a team who executes at the back end. So I've got 3 guys in the US and two in the research team. So yeah, it's I just think it's a great area, and it was more out of the fact that there was no competition in that space. So through my Singapore business, I started talking to clients in the US who were saying, well, no, there's no treasury specialist in the US. I was like, there's got to be. And yeah, so in time I realized that there wasn't. So,
and all the big guys do a terrible job. They're just not focused on it, right? So it should be a good niche for you.
And it's also, I mean, my summary, Joachim, is it's kind of big enough that everyone doesn't know everyone, but kind of small enough that as a firm, you can get your head around the market pretty well and really know, you know, there's no one in Australia who moves that I don't know that it's coming up or know within the week that it's happened. So, you know, it's small enough that I know, but all of those people don't know each other, but they kind of know each other. Did that make sense?
That makes a lot of sense.
It's a nice niche that you don't, you know, it's not massive and you can only do a little bit of it. You can cover the whole thing, but it just takes time to get yourself across the market.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And get to be known and all that. So yeah.
Totally. And generally speaking, it's great because internal recruitment don't really get treasury. Like, it's a dark art to them, and they find it really hard to then identify the right talent. Treasurers or CFOs get frustrated because they're not getting what they want. Whereas for us, you know, we're in it all day, every day. You know, likewise, if I have a job today, I could have a short list like this afternoon, as long as I can speak to all those people today. So, you know, I've got my head around the whole thing. So the US, we're still growing, obviously. Like but it'll take the guys a bit more time. We only set up really in September. We started operating, but I've had guys mapping that market for about 3 years prior to that. So we sort of like our database in the US today is 18,000. My view is I think that the whole treasury market in the US is about 25,000. So we've got a little way to get across that bit. And then it's just meeting all of those people and getting to know them. So we already have the data. We already have the knowledge. It's just we haven't met everyone yet.
Yeah, makes sense.
And that's my view as well of recruitment is like all of the information, like you don't need to put an ad out and take a response because all the information you possibly need, given time, is available. So via LinkedIn, via other social media, the data is there. Everyone knows that the data is there. What people haven't done is converted that data into usable information. And that's really what my business does is we convert that. So the stuff that you don't have on LinkedIn, like what's their salary now? What are they, what are their career motivations? What locations will they look at? All of that kind of stuff is what we're doing. And then, like the Bay Area is a really good example. There's not enough talent in the Bay Area to fill the number of treasury analyst and treasury manager roles that are advertised. So last year, from my data, only 30% of analyst and manager roles in treasury in the Bay Area got filled. So it's then if you actually know that, you sort of sit there and go, well, what are we going to do to attract that talent? Because we don't want to be one of the 70% who doesn't have someone. So what can we do? And it's just having the information. Like again, I can't create someone that doesn't exist, but I can give you information that you can use to make sure that you're one of the successful 30%. Yeah. So that's sort of, that in a nutshell, that's really our position and where we're going to take it in the US.
It's a strange market, the Bay Area, in many ways. But in general, right, it's this supercharged engineering culture with an extremely high cost of living, right? So you've got almost no finance talent or the treasury, capital markets type talent, almost zero. It's the people that are currently employed in those functions, right? And there are more people wanting to move out than coming in. So the dynamic is not good, right? So we had one guy that we're going to hire about a year ago, and he's like, yeah, you know what? I decided I don't want to take another Bay Area job. I just want out of here. Right. And what are you going to do about that? Right? And it's hard to attract in. Right? You get some, even from New York now, it looks a lot more expensive than New York. So you kind of go, okay. So that's a dilemma. It's a dilemma for sure.
So how do you do you just have to pay up for that, Joachim? Like, is it the, because I was going to say, to me, I just look at it and go, well, like to pay an extra $20,000, $30,000, $40,000, they're going to pay for your team in one transaction. So it doesn't really matter that it's costing a little bit more, as long as the CFO and the HR function can get their head around it.
HR is the worst, yeah.
40 grand here, I'll save us $1 million on that transaction. It doesn't really matter.
Yeah, I think that's right. But it tends to be, for us, we've been a little bit, since we're smack downtown San Francisco at Salesforce, that's a huge attraction for the single kind of little bit below 30. I struggled, I have a great AT, which is good, but, under there, it starts to get difficult. But I think the younger, a little more money and the attractiveness of being downtown, they can rent a little apartment, go out every night, have that. So that's been, it's been okay. I think it's on the upside. I have a few more older family oriented folks. That's harder. But it's a combination.
So almost your level beneath your AT is the hardest for you.
That's at the moment it is. And we're, training up from below. So, but, if my AT leaves, then I'm going to have to go outside.
That's a problem, so you don't have the depth of talent underneath that. So, that AT is fundamental.
Yeah.
And I think you're spot on. Like, my advice to people, like everyone says, it's counterintuitive to tell people to hire from finance and train them into treasury. But no one comes through university, college, having done treasury as a specialization, and then, you know, there's 30 graduates who all come out together, everyone falls into it from somewhere else. So, you know, they're the hardest roles for me to recruit too. Is, you know, a junior analyst, you really only get one bite of the cherry. Is they've done 6 months to 12 months, you know, internally from a finance role. They can move at a, you know, they're not overpriced, but then the minute they get that job, they'll get a 30 grand pay rise the next time, and they're straight away up to, you know, it's a different level. So I find that, you know, analysts at about 100K, I find them the hardest roles to find.
Yeah. I got to jump. I actually have an all hands I have to be on here in 2 minutes.
Oh, no worries. Good to chat anyway. Lovely to meet you finally. I did want to ask you if one day you'd come on the podcast with me as well. I'd love to probe you on your career. That would be brilliant.
Yeah, we could. We should talk about that.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks, Joachim. Good to chat.
Good to chat. Thank you.